After so many months of anxiously awaiting for the Knuckles spin-off show, it has finally been released. This six-part show is a spin-off from the Sonic movies and primarily features Knuckles training Wade on the ways of the Echidna Warrior. I absolutely loved every minute of this show, and I'm going to review everything about the show, and if you love Sonic, subscribe right now. Obviously, this is a full-out spoiler warning because I'm going to start off by talking about the show's story in full detail. So episode 1 starts off with Knuckles training hard, and Sonic, Tails, and Maddie seem very concerned that he's training himself instead of relaxing, but because Knuckles used parts from Maddie's car, he destroyed part of the house and he ultimately got grounded. Knuckles has a vision of Chief Pac-A-Mac and decides to go help Wade train for his upcoming bowling tournament in Reno. Meanwhile, two rogue GUN agents, Agent Willoughby and Agent Mason, learn of Knuckles and get assistance from the main villain, the Buyer. From there, the agents find Knuckles and Wade practicing bowling and a massive battle ensues, but then they use a ring portal to capture Knuckles. In episode 2, Wade tracks down Knuckles to the ice-capped ski resort and comes up with a plan to save him, which obviously fails. However, he then uses sriracha sauce and robotic gloves to free Knuckles, and they are able to escape. In episode 3, Knuckles and Wade arrive at Wade's mom's house, and they are then invited for a Shabbat diner where Knuckles absolutely enjoys himself by eating a ton of food. Wade and his sister don't like each other, and they do fight a lot. Then some robbers show up, and Knuckles takes control of the situation and beats all the robbers up. In episode 4, Wade gets captured and has a vision of Chief Pac-A-Mac. This leads into a long musical number where Wade learns of Knuckles' backstory. It is revealed that Knuckles faced a fiery monster named Iblis and discovered his inner power in order to defeat Iblis. This vision gave Wade the encouragement to escape, and after a duel, Knuckles got the motorcycle and the OVA hat. In episode 5, Knuckles and Wade arrive in Reno where Wade meets his dad, and then the bowling tournament starts. In the meantime, Agent Willoughby and Agent Mason face the Buyer, and then they hatch a plan to team up with Wade's dad to take Wade's mother and sister hostage. In episode 6, Knuckles shows up and fights Agent Willoughby and Agent Mason, and they use a ring gun, but then Knuckles punches the rings and they get sucked into a portal never to be heard from again. Then Wade goes to the finale of the bowling tournament versus his dad, and Wade is able to win. At the same time the Buyer shows up, Wade tries to fight him, but then the Buyer takes Knuckles' energy. Wade uses the robotic gloves to slingshot some bowling balls at him, and then a montage of how Wade became a warrior is shown. Then Knuckles wakes up and uses his power, being the Flames of Disaster, to destroy the Buyer and his robot, in a very intense and cool animated fight scene. And in the end, Knuckles and Wade ride off on the motorcycle into the sunset and back towards Green Hill. So first of all, the Knuckles show was a bit shorter than I expected. The 6 episodes averaged about 30 minutes each, so the show was in total 2 hours and 53 minutes, which is still significantly longer than even the second movie. The pacing was generally okay with no major scenes that were overly stretched, but some scenes in the final battle, for example, could have been a bit longer. I'm very glad that Sonic and Tails were in the show, but they only appeared in the first 15 minutes of the first episode because the primary focus of the show was on Knuckles and Wade. Wade brings so many jokes and blunders while Knuckles brings the power, which makes it such an unusual friendship. The show focused on Wade much more than Knuckles, and it was easy to tell that Wade had much more screen time than Knuckles. In fact, there were several long sequences where Knuckles was completely absent. Wade did have a good character development, and he was often so funny at times I could not stop laughing. The story was quite enjoyable because it felt like Wade was a nervous wreck at the beginning, but then we went through some of the trials and became much more confident, and enabled him to win the bowling tournament as well as help Knuckles in the fight against the Buyer. The show was funny and action-packed at times, and it felt much more like the movies, but at other times it felt like it was a bit slow because it was overrun by human characters. I also really enjoyed Agent Willoughby and Agent Mason as the villains because it felt like the kind of energy that Eggman had in the first movie, and same goes with the Buyer, who also reminded me a lot of Eggman, but I wish the Buyer had a bigger role in the show. The only real negative thing I have is that Knuckles should have been in the show a lot more, because after all, this is supposed to be his show and not Wade's. But when Knuckles was there, he was definitely the star of the show. I especially love that Idris Elba did such a good job voicing him, and he felt just like he did in the movies. One thing I found very interesting about Knuckles' backstory was that he fought against Iblis in the past, so this proves that Iblis exists in the Sonic Cinematic Universe, so Iblis could play a future role at some point. The only other Sonic character that made an appearance was Chief Pac-A-Mac, which was voiced by Christopher Lloyd. He was meant to give guidance to Knuckles and Wade, and really helped with Wade's character development. As for the animation and fight scenes, they were animated so well, and easily on par with the quality from the Sonic movies. The music was generally good, and I really liked the intro song that they play at the start of each episode. I was also looking closely to see if there would be anything that would point towards the third movie, and one thing in particular was that they showed GUN headquarters, which is located in London, and that happens to be where some of the filming for the movie occurred. As well as when the Buyer mentioned that before GUN existed, there was a military shadow ops program run by Robotnik, so somehow that might be hinting towards something. Overall, I would give the Knuckles show an 8 out of 10. I'm so glad we got about this show, and it's a nice addition to the Sonic Cinematic Universe. And now I'm even more excited for the next Sonic project, which will be Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in just under 8 months from now. That's gonna do it for this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and remember, you gotta go fast!
Every night it just stays the same in my dream.